So, what made it hard to realize my impact as a Dom? When I talk about how BDSM is abuse, and I've spoken about this before, and then some Doms are like, they've said to me, "Well, you were a terrible Dom." The gaslighting is just outrageous. It really is. I'm like, okay. Um, and then they're like, "Well, you were abusive, and you should be held accountable," and all this other stuff, and I'm like, what part of me not being part, what part of me saying that I was a part of the problem are you missing? And there's no such thing as like, oh, well, you just did it wrong. No, no. I was highly sought after. The so this was when I realized that BDSM is abuse. I had to go through the process of deconstructing why everybody liked what I did. The problem wasn't there weren't people saying you're an awful dom. It was the opposite. They loved everything I did. They were very happy and all this other stuff. So that made it even more difficult for me to understand my impact because I had to dig deeper. I had to dig deeper than their satisfaction with what I did. Because I was like, wait a minute, something's off here. This was when I was starting to really recognize things. When I finally became aware, and the way I became aware was I, was one of the doms that believed I was really helping people, that I was a part of healthy sexuality, because I had so many people telling me their horror stories of other doms. I'm saying in quotes because I was still part of that, but they didn't see it, even though because I didn't show up like the doms who were like malicious to them and everything else. To them, I showed up as a good dom, and so they would come to me and they would tell me their horror stories of really intense, horrifying things that happened to them, and I was outraged. So I was creating a school. I was going to teach people BDSM. I already started the curriculum, so to speak. I started the curriculum. I was going to teach people BDSM, how to be better with each other, and how to cite an abusive Dom and all this other stuff. And I had parroted the if it's if it's abuse, it's not BDSM. So then it came to the point where I had to show that. I had to prove this statement. I had to prove what I was telling everybody. And the more I searched, and this was not in the spans of a week or two or a couple of months. This is a good amount of time. I spent quite a bit of time researching this, and then I realized, oh shit, there is no line. I set out to prove myself right, and I fucked around and proved myself wrong. Okay, and I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. I was like, holy shit, there is no line. There's no line. And that's when I had to stop because I realized what it was. So I had to dig deeper because my memories and everything and all of my interactions were very positive. People said very positive things about me. So I had to go beyond what they were saying and go into a place of who groomed them to believe what I was doing was good to them. Where did it come from? What happened to them? One of the one of the things I realized was that's when I started to recognize the gaslighting and grooming in the entire setup of BDSM, in the entire setup, right? And that a lot of these people must have come from trauma. And then others who may not have come from the same trauma were coerced by the very fabric that is the BDSM setup, by the vernacular, by everything that comes together in BDSM. And that's when I was like, okay, it's time to deconstruct this. And like I said, Free from BDSM wasn't born until 7 years later from that. And because I went through such a process of devastation. Yes, I was a part of the harm. Yes, I was a part of, in my perspective, I was a part of the abuse. The problem is, in their perspective, I wasn't. And that's why I want to deconstruct this and I want to show people like this stuff isn't okay. Even if you ask for it, who taught you? Where did this come from? who groomed you that this was okay? Because it's not okay. It's not. It's harmful. Now, people would argue, well, if they were happy with it, then it didn't cause any harm, and I disagree. I disagree. And this is where it becomes hard. It becomes hard to self-actualize away from BDSM as a dom when you have people telling you this is okay, it's wonderful, I loved it, thank you, let's, let's meet again, I can't wait, and you're, all these things like you're my favorite, blah blah, and it can be very confusing. And I'm not saying this that it was their fault. I'm not saying that they um, did anything. I'm saying that the very fabric of BDSM is to blame, and the way it's set up is it just can't ever be healthy. That's going to be confusing for you as a Dom if you're trying to move away or if you're starting to become aware when you literally have people telling you you're doing such a great job. I'm so happy. I've never felt so free, blah, blah, all this other stuff. But you got to understand that this is coming from a place of trauma, whether it came from their early childhood or whether it was imprinted, they were coerced into BDSM, it was imprinted. So that's a part that was like really difficult to step into self-responsibility and self-awareness because you have people telling you the opposite. So it's you got to step past that and you got to understand the trauma of the people who were there, and for them they very well may spend the rest of their life thinking that was a great experience. You can't change that or anything like that. But what I can do is educate others that this isn't the case so that you don't get to that point. Okay, something happened to bring people there. Like I said, I'm a survivor of child trafficking, I'm a survivor of extreme trauma. And that's what brought me into BDSM because that was a part of my trauma. That was a part of what happened to me in child trafficking. That was a part of the things that was normalized and created as something that should be a part of my life. And so BDSM was normalized to me very young as a child. And, and then I found myself being trafficked again as an adult. And if you're if you're a pro dom and you're working with a dungeon, you're being trafficked. That's your pimp. And a lot of people don't want to look at it like that. A lot of people are missing a lot of the aspects of things. Now, in the next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how society is actively involved in BDSM. But also, if you're a Dom and you're struggling with this process, like I created Free from BDSM for everybody who's in BDSM right now, who's either trying to get away, got away, or the people who are outside of BDSM who are curious, and I hope that they can stay away. So if you're a Dom and you're feeling conflicted because you're being told everything you've done is great, now the ones who are really actively, consciously hurting people, they too probably have people who are at a certain level that they seem to enjoy it. They don't. And but they're going to be most likely to have people who step out. I know, like in some point we're talking about this. They might even have been banned in certain aspects of in certain BDSM communities. So it's a little easier it's a little easier to look at them and point the finger. But when you're a Dom who thinks you're doing something good and you start to become aware of, holy shit, what am I being a part of? That's going to be rough. Okay, that's going to be rough. If you need support, put your comments in the questions. Let's make sure that the comments, though, are. Let's keep the comments safe as far as like um, no sharing hyper specifics on BDSM because it could really trigger other survivors and stuff like that. But if you want to talk about how you're feeling about the process, as long as it's not something that's really trying to bait people in, feel free to comment or anything. And just be just be conscientious. Just conscientious. There are other survivors who are reading this stuff too. Okay. Otherwise, I do have to set boundaries in the comments, and I might need to delete the comment if it's not being conscientious of other survivors. But if you are struggling as a Dom, feel free to, share that concept personally of your personal struggle without details. And I'm happy to comment because I want to support people getting away. And I don't think it's, I don't want you to have to go through 7 years of hell like I went through. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to come up with some really conflicting feelings, some really intense stuff. A lot of shame came up for me. I went through a lot of shame, a lot of, it still comes up once in a while, a lot of just devastation of being a part of something that even though others people did not reflect that back to me, I had to go into the process of who who harmed them, who groomed them to believe this is okay. So I'll talk to you more in the next video, and thanks for being here. And just remember that we can always do better. And we get to do that. We get to process. You don't know what you don't know, and you get to process when you become aware. It can be pretty shocking. But I'll catch you guys in the next video, and thanks for being here.